Is a tungsten electrode. And tungsten has an extremely high melting point. When you TIG weld, the electrode gets hot, but it doesn't melt. We say that it's a non-consumable electrode. That doesn't mean it lasts forever. That just means that it doesn't melt and become part of the weld. You see, in a lot of other welding processes, the electrode melts and becomes filler metal. Those are consumable electrode processes. So here's the tungsten electrode being held in a TIG torch. The electrode slips into a collet, and the collet tightens up against the collet body. You can adjust the length that the electrode sticks out of the holder by loosening up the end cap. When you tighten the end cap, the collet clamps down on the electrode. TIG works by melting the base metal, and that is the metal that makes up the two pieces that are to be joined. The heat is generated by an electric arc that forms between the base metal and the tungsten electrode. You can control the amount of heat with a foot or without filler metal, and that's not a choice you have in a lot of other processes. If you want to add filler metal to a TIG weld, use a filler rod, which is just a rod of metal with a specific alloy. You want to make sure that the filler metal you're using is compatible with the base metal and that it has the strength required to do the job. In TIG welding, the molten metal is protected by a shielding gas. This gas, usually argon and sometimes helium or other gases, keeps the molten metal from reacting with oxygen and water vapor in the atmosphere. This shielding gas is stored in high-pressure cylinders like these. The pressure is reduced to a usable level by a device called a regulator. The shielding gas flows through a hose and comes out right at the point of the weld. So in summary, TIG welding is an electric arc welding process. It uses a
grade alcohol inside and out. All right, pay attention to something right here. It's subtle, but I'm going to call attention to it. Mike pulses with the foot pedal, and the reason for that is constantly having to rotate the torch to keep a decent torch angle. And so while he lets off, that gives him a second to reposition, rotate his wrist, get a favorable angle. That way the torch is never leaning back too far. So it's positioned in a fixture for welding after it's all tack welded up in the lineup fixture. So this is a mock-up right here, just positioned in that fixture. We're not going to weld the whole bike, just the head tube here. I think that's what it's called. Just the pulsing with the pedal here a little bit if you pay attention. Be plenty of arc shots coming up, and we will go over the settings, the exact settings used sort of at the end of the video, where we sit down and talk about all those kind of things. Using a number 8 Furic Pro here, mainly two reasons. Number one, it's a really good cup. It helps you see where you're going, but also it's really nice for filming. It really kind of lights the whole way, so you can not only just see the puddle, but we can see the seam. We can see a few ripples behind it and everything. So, but I wouldn't hesitate to use this particular cup for this application anyway, because it just works good. Again, the pedal pulsing, he's not letting off a whole lot, just enough so that heat doesn't build up and get out of hand while he's repositioning the torch angle. A lot of guys in motorsports, and this is very similar to motorsports applications like roll cages and chassis and things like that, a lot of those guys pulse with the pedal, and the reason they do it with the pedal is because if they get hung up a little bit, if their glove hangs on something, or they just can't quite get positioned, that pulse isn't coming automatically. It only comes when they want it to come. So it's a very popular technique. I think it's a good technique for these type applications. Here's a good shot of it. You can see sometimes you can actually, when you get a bad angle, you can actually sort of look through the cup and see where you're going to feed wire. That's another benefit. Again, this is a mock-up here. This is not an entire frame, but if it was a frame, this would be going to paint after it was all cleaned up. So this little broad band of cleaning outside the bead, not an issue. Rather have that and have a nice clean puddle than narrow that band down for aesthetics. That's my opinion anyway, and Mike's too, I guess. A little swirl as he adds another little dab of rod to avoid a crater crack as he tapers off the amperage. And so that joint is done now.